Good evening, everyone. Welcome to day 3 of studying communication. Today we will be talking about mass media, the last topic of communication, but nonetheless the most important, because nowadays as media, the mainstream media, MSM, mainstream media is becoming more and more powerful in influencing the mindset, the beliefs, the attitude of people. The questions asked from this topic are also increasing. Media is also called the fourth pillar of democracy. Okay, the other three pillars are judiciary, that's the courts, executive, and executive are people who execute those who clear IAS and then they go and work. Those people form the executive, and the legislature, that is our parliament and legislative assemblies at state level. These are the three pillars of democracy. The fourth pillar is media. The positive side of media is its strength and solidarity, that it can bring about unity in people. But the negative side is ignorance and unruliness, which implies a lack of culture, intelligence, and rationality. So when can something be called as mass media? There are three requirements for it. First, a large and a heterogeneous audience. Heterogeneous means audience in which everyone has different characteristics. Differences of gender, race, caste, religion, location, that's geography. So this heterogeneous audience in a large number has to be there, condition number 1. Condition number 2, an institutional or a group source has to be there. So when we talk about a news channel, or when we talk about something that's on OTT or on YouTube or on social media, there is an institution or a group which is a source of sharing things. And the third is the use of mechanisms to reproduce information. Something that is known to them is reproduced and shared to the larger audience. So there is a certain mechanism. It could be television, it could be radio, it could be a social media platform, it could be a website. So mechanism is used to share the information. These are the three requirements which make something mass media. Okay, so the difference between mass versus crowd, definition of mass, we talked about it. Now, mass versus crowd. A mass is geographically scattered. It is passive. It is not active or enraged about something, and it is there for long term. A crowd is spontaneous, temporary, emotionally charged, and it is there for a shorter duration, not for a longer time. Okay, that's the difference between a mass and a crowd. Now, mass media is not just transmission of information, but it is an interactive system which integrates multimedia, that is text, images, sound, and data. It includes print media, newspapers, magazines, periodicals, audiovisual, television, social media, which we can watch using laptops or iPads, or nowadays also Google TVs and Android TVs, digital media on internet, PR, that is brochures which are shared, advertisements. The last one is advertising. So when you see banners, flyers, advertising of any kind, someone has released a statement that this our agency has released an official statement. All of this is mass media, and it functions as fourth estate in democracy, shaping public opinion and policy. According to Article 9 of the Indian Constitution, it upholds the freedom of expression, the freedom to seek receive, and impart information across frontiers. Okay. So the audience in mass media can be seen from 4 different perspectives. First, media rich, that is the total potential audience. Next is media access, who has access to the specific media and the willingness to engage or to listen or watch them. Media exposure, actual users engaging with the content, how many are commenting. Even on television these days, they have opinion polls where they say give a missed call to this number and press 1 if your answer is yes, or press 2 if your answer is no. Okay, so even on television they are asking that. On radio they give a number and they ask you to call. So users engaging with the content, or probably based on that people are writing their articles, they are citing that source and talking about it to other people. That is media exposure. And media effects, the change in knowledge, attitude, opinion, or behavior of the audience after exposure. So media reach, media access, media exposure, and media effects. These are the 4 perspectives from which we can gauge the audience in mass media. The main characteristics which I talked about: a large and heterogeneous audience. The source is institutional, whether it is public or private sector. And the mechanism for reproduction, which means it uses any kind of technology to duplicate and disseminate messages. And it is called mediated communication. There's an editor or someone in the position to decide what should be shared with the audience and in which form. A little bit about the history. It grew in the 20th century due to technology like printing, radio networks, and film duplication. Linear economics, that is, one message, many replications is equal to more profit. And then with the advent of technology and social media especially, came digital expansion into blogs, podcasts, websites, a lot of communities. MSM or mainstream media is aligned with the dominant culture. It is also called drive-by media by Rush Limbaugh. It is criticized for sometimes blurring lines between truth and misinformation. So these are of, okay, so there are 3 models on which mass media works. Very simple and very easy to understand. First is a transmission model. This focuses on sending and receiving messages with intent and direction. Okay, it is usually linked with institutional communication, education, religion, and government. Your college sending messages to you. If it's a big university, they have to send messages to multiple colleges that come under the aegis of that university. Okay, education, religion, and government, they follow this. The limitation is it is not very relevant to most mass media activity due to its rigid and formal approach. A rigid communication is passed down step by step through the sources, and that is how things work. Okay. The next is ritual model. Now, it is similar to transmission model, but there is a shift in the focus. What is the shift in the focus? Interpretation of the media content by audiences is there. So only the intent of the sender and receiver is not there. Your university informed you that the dates of the exam will be this. It is spread everywhere on WhatsApp groups. Your class teacher comes and tells you. It is posted on notice boards. It is posted on notice boards of your department, of your college. Everywhere that information is posted. You don't have to react to it. But when it comes to interpretation of that information, that what could be the intent behind this, what could be the meaning behind this, communication here is a shared experience. like participating in a ritual. So watching the news or TV show together, the entire family sits together. This does happen at my parents' place. Both of them retired. At 9 p.m., there's a news channel, there's a show. Both of them will sit, even though they are people who sleep early and wake up early. With drooping eyes, they'll watch that entire news show from 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. And it is more of an entertainment value for them. So the entire family sits there in the living room for that 1 hour, and then everyone goes to sleep. Okay. So that becomes a shared experience. It becomes a ritual. So mass media affecting the audience interpretation in this way is the ritual model. And the last one is attention gaining model. Transmission model, ritual model, and attention gaining model. The purpose is capturing and holding audience attention. So audience often consume media for escapism, entertainment, or distraction. So the commercial link, attention is measured in time spent engaging with the content. For how long they are watching this TV channel, for how long they are listening to this radio frequency, for how long they were present on this website or this page, or how long did they read the article. Business implication. The result of this, for how much time were they involved, is directly linked to advertisement. The more the number of audience engaging with the content, the higher is the price of advertisement in that place. Content strategy. So media must adapt to produce attention holding and engaging content, which is why we have sunny case khabre happening every 10 minutes on the television, and when you actually listen to them, there's nothing worth listening or no new news. Okay, because they have to keep on grabbing your attention by giving sensational headlines that after 15 minutes, we are going to share this news. The headlines would be so sensational, and I have fallen prey to this a lot of times. When I read those headlines, I feel ki, "Arey, aaj to kuch naya janne ko milega." Oh my God, was some world record broken? Did something never happened before? And that has happened. And when you listen to that, I wait for 10 minutes, but there's nothing such in the news. It's just an attention grabbing headline. But now, because of commercialization and advertising, mass media has to do this. That is why this is called the attention gaining model. I'm sure for those who watch or read news, this has happened with you. So a quick recap of the three. Transmission is transfer of meaning, cognitive processing. Expression or ritual model is where there's performance and shared experience, probably of family, of a group of people. Attention gaining is where there's display, and the receiver's orientation is into spectatorship. Oh my God, what's happening? Okay. So these are the three models. Now, how did it evolve? Print media includes books, pamphlets, newspapers, magazines. They are also called galleys or bound proofs. It's the first and the oldest mass media. There are total 7 mass media in India. The first is print media. Second came recordings. Gramophone records, magnetic tapes, audio cassettes, CDs, DVDs, all of this is considered as mass media, okay? For music, spoken content and archiving. Nowadays, we have pen drives instead of CDs. Okay. Then cinema from 1900s, a powerful audiovisual storytelling medium, popular in entertainment and cultural transmission. Next, also came radio, widely used for news, entertainment, education. So in entertainment, songs and everything, or songs, interviews, everything is included. Television brought visual news and entertainment into homes, and it played a crucial role in shaping public opinion and mass awareness. The last two, internet and mobile phones. So internet offers instantaneous global communication. It is the core of digital media, news websites, blogs, and mobile phones, merged communication plus media consumption. So social media, mobile journalism, instant updates. If you have an app of a news channel or a newspaper, or even on website, if you have subscribed, constantly every few minutes you will keep on getting a ping that this is the new news every few minutes. I know with this because it happens in my father's phone. He constantly keeps getting notification from different kinds of news channel that this is the latest news, the breaking news, what they call it. So that keeps on happening. So mobile journalism, instant updates. Apart from that, a lot of consumption of social media, and also when it comes to things like movies, entertainment, songs can be done using mobile phones. So 7 kinds of mass media in India: print media, recordings, cinema, radio, television, internet, and mobile phones. Okay. Now, electronic media includes broadcasted media, that is TV, radio, disc and tapes. Film is cinema. Internet, computer games is also considered as mass media, especially when it is interactive digital content. And nowadays, using internet, you have multiplayer games where people log in from different corners of the world and they are engaged in it. Books, newspapers, and magazines. Publishing is also electronic media. Publication has legal significance when it comes to IP, intellectual property. Okay. Now, few terms related to mass media so that if they ever appear in your MCQs, you know what they mean. Gatekeepers. If you remember, we talked about this when we talked about models of communication. Media professionals, editors, producers who decide what gets published, aired on television or radio or printed. Entropy is communication disorder or chaos, unpredictability when media becomes too influential. New wave cinema, experimental filmmaking started in 1950s without elaborate plot, timeline, realistic, non-theatrical treatment. This is something what we call in layman terms as art movies. Okay. Prime time, the peak audience time for media, that is either television or radio, usually evening hours when the viewership is highest. That is called prime time. Yellow journalism is when sensational or exaggerated reporting is there, where the importance is not given to facts, but rather how to create sensation from it, using shocking headlines to attract attention. Alternative media. These are the non-mainstream media outlets, not the bigger companies, not the bigger institutions, but the smaller ones, which focus on marginalized voices or niche or very specific small narrow issues which are specific to some minority audience, whether in terms of gender, whether in terms of caste, whether in terms of location. So they cater to all the problems, all the achievements of marginalized community in any sort of way. That is alternative media. Participatory media is when audience creates the content. So on an article, when there are very long comments which are good enough to be articles on their own, that is a participatory content. Citizen journalism. If you see in newspaper, there are also places where letters by the readers to the editors, those letters are printed. So that is audience created content. And there is no strict editorial control, at least in social media. Surveillance. Surveillance. Surveillance is when someone goes and tries to monitor things. Surveillance is when you are recording things from your own point of view. When you have a button camera here, or you are wearing a camera somewhere and you are recording things from your own point of view, that is Surveillance. A CCTV which observes everything is surveillance. Embedded journalist. An embedded journalist is someone who is placed in military units, who offers ground level views during conflicts, but the content that they give is restricted. Only the content which cannot disclose the secret information of the military, that much is shared by this journalist. They are called embedded journalists. Multimedia. Multimedia means where text, sound, images, and video, all of them are present there in an interactive digital platform, such as online news portals or educational tools. That is called multimedia. And the last is PR, public relations. It's an agency or a person or a group of people that manages communication and relationships between individuals, people, groups, or organizations. That is called PR or public relations. So I guess these were some terms related to mass media. Now, one important aspect of mass media is advertisement. Creative communication to promote products or services. So what are the features of advertisements? Ads would carry product features, comparisons, and persuasive messages. What is their role in mass communication? They are actually the financial backbone for media. Your news channels are mostly for free on television because they are being paid by advertisers, uses mass communication tools, and shapes cultural and social perceptions. Like nowadays, you have advertisements in which they try to show a man sharing workload in the house and a woman who's going out to work, because they are trying to show that we are becoming more gender neutral. We are not trying to show earlier, like 100 years back when there used to be advertisements, it used to be like a woman using detergent to clean clothes. Nowadays, you have a man doing that sometimes, that a man is sharing the workload of the woman. And I think it's Ariel or probably where he says that, okay, I will learn how to use the washing machine and help you out because you also come from work to home. So shapes cultural and social perceptions. Advertisers tries to do that. And of course, they have to be attention grabbing. Now, we talked about models, different terms and aspects. And now what we have to talk about is there are few theories of mass media. I'm not taking these theories in detail because you just need to have a bird's view idea of what each theory means. So in case a question is asked where these theories are your options, you would know what to choose as your answer. Hypodermic theory or bullet theory. It says that media is powerful. That's why it's called bullet. And it has direct impact. Audience is just passive receivers. Audience will just receive what you are telling them. For example, World War II propaganda, where whatever was shared by Hitler was considered to be that, oh, okay. If you know, Hitler is considered to be one of the best communicators when it comes to history of the world. I'm not talking about moral values, but the fact that he could convince an entire nation to kill their own neighbors just because they are belonging to a certain race and convince them that these are the people who are going to be responsible for their death, doom somehow. What level of communication influence he must have had. So that is the hypodermic. By hypodermic, dermis is your skin. Hypodermic, the needle that we use for injection, like whenever the doctor gives you injection, that needle is actually called hypodermic needle because needle is also used for sewing clothes. The needle which is used to give injection on the skin is called the hypodermic needle. So the hypodermic theory or the bullet theory, it says that media is very powerful. Things go directly, impact the audience. Audience is just a passive receiver. Next is psychological or individual difference theory, where different people have different reactions. So the same kind of propaganda, the same kind of news could make people have different reactions. The key concepts are selective exposure. So people will watch only those things which aligns with their beliefs. And selective perception, interpreting messages to suit yourself. Especially in WhatsApp, you have two opposing kind of messages going out. You would believe in what you already believe and ignore the opposite kind of message. So that is the psychological or individual difference theory. Next is cognitive dissonance theory. That is when there are conflicting thoughts in your mind, there is always mental discomfort. So to avoid that discomfort, people avoid the information that would challenge their belief. This is also linked to standpoint theory, like wherever you are standing, whatever is visible from your point of view, you will only look at that. You will ignore everything else. You will avoid everything that challenges the beliefs that you already have. You as in the audience. That is cognitive related to brain dissonance theory. I hope I am being clear so far. Okay? Because the words are heavy, but the concepts are not. The concepts are very simple if you just consider the impact that news channels, whether online, offline, even some influencers who create news, who take interviews of influential people, whatever impact it has on people in general, how mass media is used to influence people during critical times or during elections. If you just take a consideration of that, understanding these theories would become very easy. Clear? Just one person? Thank you. But what about the rest? Clear? If you have any questions or any doubts, please keep on asking. Okay? I'm constantly checking if there's a question or a doubt in the chat box. Okay. So far we talked about hypodermic or bullet theory, which is media is powerful. Psychological or individual difference, that is different people have different reactions and they watch only what aligns with their belief. They avoid something that challenges their belief because it will cause mental discomfort or cognitive dissonance. Next is personal influence theory. It says that people are influenced more by others than the media. That is, for example, the media is not important, but what the opinion leaders come there and say, or come there and say based on the thing that was shown on media, that is what influences people. So a news was released. Now a politician or an influential person or a powerful person came and wrote a tweet on it. Now that tweet is actually going to influence people more than the news shared by the media. The two-step flow. And there is multi-step flow where influence flows in all directions, upward, downward, sideways. Now it's not like when a news comes, only one leader gives opinion on it, right? There are a lot of people tweeting on it. So how many of them influence your mindset? That is the you as in the audience here. Audience mindset depends on that situation. That is the multi-step flow. This is called the personal influence theory, that you are influenced by the opinion leader rather than directly by the news. And that is why you have people coming on panels in news channels, right? Okay. Now, sociological theories of mass media, based on the assumption that there is definitely a relationship between mass communication and social change, whether it is about societal values, public beliefs, and opinions. And when we talk about mass communication, it includes everything: films, movies, records, songs, advertisements, news channels. We are not just talking about news channels, we are talking about all kind of mass communication. Religious, educational, governmental, all of this included. So there is a relationship between mass communication and social change. Based on that, there are three theories. Cultivation theory by Gergner, that media shapes worldview over time. But those who watch mass, or those who are exposed to mass communication a lot, that is heavy viewers, their reality gets distorted. Okay, because they are so much influenced by what they keep on saying. There's information overload, and they don't then they start forgetting how to separate truth from falsehood. Second theory is agenda setting by McCombs and Shaw. Media tells what to think about. It gives you the topic, it gives you the agenda. It does not tell you what to think. It just tells you the topic or the agenda about which you should think. So if you realize on a panel, there are all kinds of people, the supporters, the non-supporters. Now, whom to believe is your call. That is what agenda setting theory says. The third is uses and gratification theory by Katz. That audience is active. It uses media for needs, values, and satisfaction. Probably entertainment, probably escapism, probably looking for someone who aligns with your beliefs. Audience uses media for its needs, values, and satisfaction. That is uses and gratification theory. These are the three sociological theories of mass media. Okay. Next, dependency theory by Ball, Rokyach, and De Fleur, that people depend on media during change and conflict. So whenever there is a war-like situation, whenever there is something, whenever the stock exchange crashes, people depend on media to know what happened, how it happened, when are things going to become normal. So I remember a few months ago when suddenly stocks crashed. When I woke up in the morning, I was like, how did that happen? And then I got to know that it was actually Bank of Japan had some new guidelines, because of which Japanese stock exchange crashed. And as a result, with the domino effect, the rest of the stock exchanges in the world got impacted. So I don't follow it on a day-to-day basis, okay? It's just that I saw that in the news. So that is what happens. So where do you go? You'll start checking internet, you'll start checking news channels. Why did that happen? That is the dependency theory. Spiral of silence. People stay silent to avoid isolation if their opinion is in minority, because they probably want to avoid conflict, because then they know that they are in the minority. They stay silent and they don't voice out their opinion. Otherwise, they'll get isolated. Diffusion of innovation. Media spreads new ideas and people adopt them over time. That is a theory by Rogers. And confirmation bias. We accept information that matches our beliefs and reject the opposing views. Although everything has been said, we will only accept those things which we are okay with. Normative theories. So see, these theories are actually all the characteristics of mass media and how it influences people, what are its effects, what are its advantages, disadvantages. By the time we complete the theories, you will have a viewpoint of everything that happens when it comes related to mass media. And the number of questions asked from mass media is increasing, which is why I decided to include all these theories. Okay, so clear so far, everyone? Okay, so normative, norm, like how we can expect it to work. What are the norms that are normative theories? So under the prevailing set of politico-economic circumstances in the current world, the political and economic circumstances, how the media has to be, or how can it be expected to operate, these that is shared by the normative theories. Like authoritarian theory by Siebert, that media is under state control. Media has to follow what government says. The censorship is justified. So government says that show this, do not show this, and because they have power, they also justify it. That this is for the welfare of people. This is to avoid chaos and panic in the minds of the people. Another theory is free press or libertarian theory, again by Siebert, which says that media should have freedom of expression because press is the watchdog. It ensures that everything and everyone is going on the right path. Social responsibility. Press should be free plus responsible, and it should serve public interest. Whereas the communist theory says that media is the mouthpiece of working class and there should not be any kind of private media. So that is what communist theory suggests. It's not that that is the truth, but it suggests that media should actually be the mouthpiece of working class, and it should not be private media. It should not be talking about the views of the business class, the capitalist class, that way. Development media theory by UNESCO. Media should be used for nation building and development. Democratic participant theory says decentralized, small-scale media with participation from all levels of society should be there. This all talks about how media should be, not how it actually is, but it is talking about the ideal situation. Okay, different theories. Next, what are the key impacts of mass media on society? Education. It informs people about what's happening around them. Accountability. It acts as a watchdog through advocacy and surveillance. So if someone posts something, immediately screenshots are taken. If someone says something, there's a video which can also always be cited that 4 years ago you gave this statement, today you are saying something else, please justify. Cultural diversity promotes awareness and appreciation of different cultures and lifestyles. When you watch movies, OTT content, news from different cultures, different lifestyles, you become aware of what's happening in cultures apart from you. It also helps in understanding cultural diversity and also developing respect for it. Okay. We are just there. So now, just focus on the terms just to understand things. What is the purpose of mass media based on perception? Why does mass media exist? Zarurati kya hai? Why is it needed? What action does it take? What are the objectives of having mass media? Advocacy, that is business, advertising, marketing, and also social, political, propaganda, public relationships, political campaigns. You have political advertisements also happening, right? Education and socialization, entertainment, journalism, news, information, and PR, building image of people. These are the 5 purposes of mass media. Next is, this is again considered to be one of the important theories when it comes to functions of mass media. Like, what are the 3 functions? Surveillance. It is the eyes, ears, and voice of the society. Or you can call it the watchdog of the society. Okay, it ensures that everything goes straight and the democracy is protected and people are protected. Ideally, that is what it is for. It informs the public of news, weather, ads, everything. Second is correlation. Helps in forming public opinion, promotes social consensus on important issues. And transmission of social inheritance. That is, once parents, teachers, elders, they used to help us by sharing moral values, stories, what you should do in life, what you should not. Slowly, media is taking over all these roles and is shaping values, beliefs, and social norms. Okay. So there's one more theory by Dennis McQuail, which says that media is the molders and reflectors of society. It is interactive, not one way, linked to social traditions and values. Understanding these different concepts about mass media is going to help you when you have to solve the questions, except those where they ask about the names of scientists and the dates. Barrelsel and Janowitz says that the communication effects are diverse. They are short-term, long-term, strong, weak. Sometimes they manifest immediately, sometimes they are latent. You can't see them directly. It impacts opinions, values, skill, behavior, and the effects can be psychological, political, economic, and sociological. So in general, if we have to start concluding so far what we discussed about mass media, so media is equal to information power. Nowadays, currently, it provides a lot more information than ever before. Information overload has become a problem of today's world. You go on Google search, you get thousands of results, and the first few are actually duplicates of each other. Information is also a commodity. People pay for it using money, like probably for OTT you pay, for internet you pay. And also, along with money, they pay for it with their time and energy and attention. Media is a source of entertainment and information. In India, it is still largely an oral society. We prefer interpersonal one-to-one communication, whereas in West, the media consumption is very high for information. But nowadays, honestly, the lines are being blurred, okay? Because the entire world is slowly becoming a global village, especially the urban areas which have access to internet in India. I'm not talking about the areas where they do not have access to internet, but where people have access to internet, then in those places, the influence of what you see on social media is quite more. In our Indian society, if we talk about mass media, what are the major problems or concerns when we talk about mass media? First is manipulation, altering visuals and audio, creating fake videos, creating fake audios. An image or a video is shared and things are shared about it. Like recently, I saw a video in which a news anchor, I would not say the name because then again that is spreading false information. It was shared that there was a CBI raid on their place and they were doing anti-national activities, and someone was spreading that message. So I just went and checked and found that this image was actually 5 years ago, and it was a CBI raid more, which had more to do with tax evasion and not anti-national activities. But there's so much of fake news being spread about using old videos and images. So there's a lot of misleading stuff being shared everywhere, and very few people are actually doing fact check. Privacy, clash between personal privacy and public interest. So that is again, anyone starts recording videos anywhere without a concern for the consent of the other person. So there's clash between personal privacy and public interest. Someone's taking video of a place you have just gone to visit there with your family, and your family becomes immortal on YouTube forever because he put that video. They might not know who you are, but your faces are still going there, right? Security, threat to digital data, whether it is government, finance, records. A lot of awareness is being spread about financial scams, that it's very easy to hack your bank accounts with just an OTP, or using your personal details, your Aadhaar card, your things like that. Also, a few years ago, it was shared that the Aadhaar card database, it was hacked and a lot of data was stolen. So that is again one concern. Democracy, voter manipulation through mass media. Isolation, people becoming socially fragmented despite global connectivity, because instead of joining people together, helping people become more culturally sensitive, more united, um, a lot of mass media propaganda works towards making people socially fragmented, incited against different communities, different countries. So that is again a concern. Manipulation, privacy, security, democracy, isolation. That is the end of the theory on mass media. Okay. Any questions, any doubts, please ask right now. And then we can move to the questions. Or you can tell me if everything was clear so far. Okay. So try to remember the names of the scientists who gave theories. At least not the scientists, then what is the content of the theory? So if you get that as an option, then it's 2 marks in your pockets straight away. So let's start from here. Okay. So I'm sorry, I forgot to separate the answer and question for this, probably because it was the first slide. Media kits are used in classroom communication, confidential communication, external communication, and internal communication. So whenever there are press conferences, the written statement is shared, or whenever there's launch of a new project or something, media kits are given. So whatever press release they want the media to share, that content is given in a written format or video format to the media. So that is called media kit, and the purpose for it is external communication to reporters, to clients. Promote launches, present the company, and save time by providing essential details. And it also ensures that people do not distort the message that you want to share. When you already share it in a proper recorded form, whether it is written or recorded, to the other party, that's the reporter or clients. Which of the following are essential elements of mass communication? Electronic observation, technological medium, large audience, professional communicators, and organizational structure. So 1 and 4, two answers. Okay, so your answer is 4. Apart from electronic observation, all the other 4 are important. The idea that mass media do not have much power to directly influence led to the concept of the theory, which says that mass media does not directly influence the audience. Limited effects, think again. Mass effects, okay. What about individual and regulated? Someone wants to go for 3, someone wants to go for 4. There are so many people in the class here. Only a few people taking the effort to type something. That's called the limited effects. Because it does not have the power. So sometimes it is really simple and sometimes the question is way beyond understanding. Just like the smiles and frowns ones which I shared yesterday.
Ma'am, what is the answer for the previous question?
Limited effects. See, I shared that. Okay. Which of the following are considered hot media? Telephone, television, radio, cinema, and photographs. So by hot, it means something that is in trends, trendy. Two and four. Okay. But it says that nowadays, listening to radio, we don't no longer have only Vivid Bharati. We have a lot of radio channels, theaters, photographs. These are the hot media. Telephone is almost replaced by smartphone, and television is becoming not just DTH but also OTT. Okay, so like a lot of people do not even have subscription of DTH in their homes anymore. They just watch OTT. Which of the following social sciences have contributed to the knowledge of mass communication? Anthropology, sociology, psychology, social medicine, and defense studies. Four, that's the answer. Anthropology is the study of history of human beings. Sociology is how we interact in societies, and psychology, how humans work. Okay, so that's the answer. A, B, and C only. Next, match list 1 with list 2. Attention economy, narrowcasting, synchronous audience, peculiar form of presentness. Public speech, television, internet, FM radio. If you don't know all the terms, what you should do is think of something that you know for sure and eliminate other options. One, two. Anyone for 3 and 4? 3 and 4. Okay. So this is a question where everyone has different opinions. The answer is 3. Attention economy is internet. Your reels and shorts are attention economy. Narrowcasting is FM radio. Synchronous audience is in a public speech, and peculiar form of presentness is related to television. The answer is 3. Next, another matching. Match the applications of mass media with the communication terms. Interviews, newspaper, classroom, and meditation. Group communication, intrapersonal, interpersonal, and mass communication. D. Okay, so the answer is very clearly 4. In interview, you have 2 or at least an interviewer and 1 or 2 people who are interviewed. So that becomes interpersonal communication. A newspaper is shared to a huge chunk of diverse audience in different geographic locations. So that becomes mass communication. In classroom, there's a group of students, there's group communication, and meditation is talking to your own self. That is intrapersonal communication. Okay, next. These are questions which have been asked in the last 2 years, 2023, 2024. Okay. The main purpose of establishing television in India at the initial stage was? Main purpose, television, India, initial stage. These are your keywords. News, okay. Education and awareness among rural population. 1 and 3. Okay, 2, entertainment. No one says it was for scientific development. So the answer has to be 3, I guess, because initially Doordarshan was the main source of news. Used to be only at 8:30 Hindi news, 9 o'clock English news. That's it. The rest of the day, you didn't have news going on. Nowadays, you have 24-hour news channel. I'm sure a lot of you must be even my seniors here. And for my juniors, if you don't come from that era, there was an era where news used to be only for 30 minutes in the night and on Doordarshan, and we didn't have 24-hour news channel trying to create breaking news every 10 minutes. Okay. Mass media and its examples. FM, newspaper, TV channel, and internet. The Tribune, Rediff.com, Radio Mirchi, CNBC. Match them. One, two. Okay. Once you decide that FM is Radio Mirchi, you only have 2 options. Okay? And CNBC is a TV channel. So my A and C are fixed because these are the 2 most common names. Then you only have 2 as your option. The Tribune becomes a newspaper, and Rediff.com, if probably the font is smaller and that's why the answer was 1 from some of you, then sorry for that. So when it says .com, it has to be a website and it is related to internet. Okay, so your answer is 2. Next, mass communication as a discipline has drawn ideas from which of these sciences? Physics, chemistry, philosophy, material science. Yeah. So rightly said, the answer is philosophy. Because physics and chemistry does not have much to do with communication, but when they talk about grabbing attention from audience, when they talk about their responsibilities, moral responsibilities as watchdog of the society, as fourth pillar of democracy, then all the philosophical tenets come into play. Next, what are the characteristics of cool media? Now, this was a question that was asked. First, we had hot media. Now we have cool media. High participation, low definition, high definition, small amount of information, and high amount of information. Out of this, which 3 characteristics can be used to describe cool media? Take your time. Before I share my answer, can you please share what could be the potential examples of cool media? Anyone, you can speak up, you can write in chat box. Because when we think of the example of cool media, we can talk about its characteristics. So an example, what do you think is cool?
Ma'am, I guess when we were discussing about hot media, it was something more in trend. So cool media, that way should be opposite of uh, something which is not in trend that much and not reaching the audience in large number.
Okay. Actually, cool here refers to the slang of the youth, which says cool, which is the cool media. Now, when I do this yo kind of thing, I hope you get an idea. So from that perspective, what could be potential example of things that are cool these days? Just a hint, it is something that most people spend their time scrolling.
Reels.
Exactly. So if
Reels.
we talk about reels or YouTube shorts, what are the characteristics of that?
It is for short period of time, short information, something.
Yes. So when you say small amount of information, it rules out one. Now you have option 2, 3, and 4. What could be another characteristic?
More publicity, ma'am.
But that is not an option here. What is the option which relates to more publicity here? High participation, yes. So high participation and small amount of information, A and D. There's only one answer, one option which has that. So high participation, low definition. Low definition, when we talk about pixels, we'll probably talk about it a little bit more when we come to ICT. There is information and communication technology. So pixels, when people shoot reels with their smartphones. Everyone does not have high-tech gear. So if you remember the TikTok era before reels came to internet and YouTube, when TikTok was prevalent in India, it is still the research says that currently TikTok is more watched in US as compared to Instagram. In US, they watch TikTok. TikTok is the most used social media, or most watched, I should say. People spend the most time on that as compared to Instagram. Because it is banned in India, we spend our time on Instagram or YouTube. Okay. So high participation, low definition, and small amount of information, because it is 15 seconds, 30 seconds, max a minute. By that time, you would have scrolled. Next question. Audience, imperialism, catharsis, siloing, and early window. These are 4 concepts. On the other side, there is description of these concepts. Mediated aggression to reduce people's aggressive behavior, selecting news sources based on ideology, early media exposure of the world to children, too much preference to audience activity. You have to match A with B, take your time. So here in this question, first of all, I think the answer has to be 4. But before we talk about the answer, if we have to solve the question, this is how our thought process should be. That let's assume we don't know the meaning of any of these concepts, which could be quite possible with catharsis and siloing at least. So here I have one word, audience imperialism. If you are someone who has been exposed to English, you would know that imperial relates to royalty or king. So audience is the king. Here there is one option which says too much preference to audience activity. So my A with 4 is fixed, because I don't see anywhere here which talks about audience. Probably reduce people's aggressive behavior, but I think with the word imperialism, too much preference would go well. So now if there are, let's say, 2 or 3 options where A is 4, here there is only one option. But if there were 2 or 3 options, then my next would be early window, because the word children is used. Early media exposure of the world to children. So my D with 3, that could be the second option that I choose. Now I might have only 1 or 2 options left. Then if I don't know catharsis and siloing, then you can choose one out of the 2 options, or in just like in this case, if there is only one, then you can choose. Apart from literature, it might be possible that catharsis is not known to people who have not studied English literature. So even for the word imperial, it could be a new word for a lot of people. At least like for English literature people, we would also know that silos are where we store grains, and that is why it talks about selecting people, news sources based on ideology, isolating stuff in segments. That is how we can relate to it. Catharsis is mediated aggression to reduce people's aggressive behavior. So here the answer has to be 4. Okay, so knowledge of English is also important. I sometimes find that the Hindi questions given below can help you out, but then the Hindi is very, very pure Hindi language used. A lot of times it takes a moment to understand what is written. For me, it is reverse. Like if they give me a Hindi question, I would have to probably see the English translation, because I'm more used to those words while solving questions. But if you think that Hindi is your comfort zone, the pure original Hindi, where swa, nu, chalit kind of words are okay for you, then you can also use that as an advantage. Which of the following are associated with the heavy use of internet? internet addiction, depression, distraction, atomization, and media literacy. Do you have a question, sir? Yes.
Madam, I would like to know whether Hindi and English questions are given at one place, or we need to switch them.
So far, in one paper, we don't know what's going to happen this time. Every time things keep changing, but so far they are given together.
Okay, okay, madam. Thank you.
But you should not depend on that, okay? That is just, if you have it, use it. But that should not be your primary strategy. Nowadays, government exam taking agencies are also becoming very smart. They are hiring people from competitive preparation classes, and they are becoming very smart. Okay.
Okay, madam.
So your answer here is 1. If we see internet addiction, distraction, and depression, these are basic things that we know are obviously related to internet. Just give me a moment. Okay. So I was, when I actually solved the question for the first time, I thought there's no option where there's only A, B, and C. So my automatic option has to be A, B, C, D. But I forgot that I would also need to share with you what atomization means. So atoms are the smallest units. So atomization means in your mind, you start getting fragmented or isolated. Whether it is your beliefs, that my culture is the best, my beliefs are the most true, because nowadays social media also has those algorithms. They will show you things only which you want to look at. So that is one thing. And you also get isolated from the world. So that is atomization could happen. Media literacy does not happen. Media literacy, you use something for some time, you will be able to understand how that social media or that website or that app operates. You don't need to use it heavily just for media literacy. The second media age is characterized by the rise of print media, radio, television, interactive media. So the answer is interactive media. The first age was when print, radio, and television came. Currently, what we are having is a second media age. Next, identify the correct chronological sequence of the following. The options given, all of them were incorrect, so I removed them. There were 4 options given, all of them were incorrect. So let's form options on our own. Codex, television, radio, newspaper, Technicolor, cinema. First of all, I want you to think, what is a codex? What is a codex? It's not Kodak, not Kodak camera. Codex, it's a media. ACBDE, ADCEB. You're going to get a lot of variety of answers. What is a codex? That's the answer I want first. Then we'll talk about the sequence. Audio, video file, manuscripts. Yes, Repti ma'am. Perfect. First of all, I thought that codex has to be the last one because it is something that comes in the Superman movie, that they have a codex wherein the entire genome is stored. But then I was like, that cannot be called mass media, right? It's a fictional story. So then I realized when I searched that codex actually means handwritten manuscripts, and that is 4th century. The earliest records are 3rd, 4th century. So A would be your first answer. So after codex, what came? Television, radio, newspaper, technicolor cinema.
Radio, ma'am.
Radio. Anyone else who thinks something apart from newspaper came first? Okay.
Newspaper.
Newspaper. So let's say second was newspaper. Then, of course, we know radio came first, then came television. And did technicolor cinema come before television or after?
After television.
Okay. So I'll show you the answers. Okay. This question has been asked twice. Once it was asked with codex, and earlier it has been asked where instead of codex the option was internet. Okay, so here I am sharing the years and wherever I could find names, the names of the inventors also. Okay, so codex 4th century is, it says that recorded mostly 4th century, 400 AD, between 300 to 400 AD. Television, 1925 by John Logie Baird. Radio, 1895 by Marconi. Newspaper was first published in 1605 in Antwerp, in that location. It's the name of a city. Technicolor cinema was before television. Cinema came first, then came television. If you remember the theories that I shared. 1917, The Gulf Between was the first movie in Technicolor cinema. The black and white movie was first released in 1888. But here, because they have asked Technicolor, the answer is 1970. If they asked black and white cinema, it came even before radio. It was released in 1888 for the first time. And internet came the last, 1990, by Tim Berners-Lee. Okay, so I just click a screenshot of it, take a note of it. This is the sequence of how mass media came into being. Clear? Shall we move on to the next question? Next. Which of the following are benefits of interactive, technology-oriented media? Did someone raise a hand? No. Master-slave architecture, passive audience, enhancement of individualism, democratic decentralization, and permits creativity. One, A, B, and C. Master-slave architecture, passive audience. Passive audience is a benefit. Think again. When there is interactive, technology-oriented media, audience would be actively involved, right? It is interactive. So the answer is 3. But what is master-slave architecture, right? That comes a question. So it is actually a computer terminology in which one device or process controls one or more other devices. There's a central computer and it controls other computers. That is called master-slave architecture. It's a computer terminology and has got nothing to do with master-slaves in human beings. Okay. Audience cannot be passive if the media is interactive. That leaves us with three options: enhancement of individualism, democratic decentralization, and permits creativity. Next, in digital communication, a television broadcast and radio broadcast are examples of automatic, half duplex, simplex, and full duplex communication. This is a physics question as far as what I understand. We have all four options coming up. Okay, so the answer is simplex, but I'll explain to you the meaning of all this terminology. Okay, simplex is when there is one directional communication. There is transmission from one place and it goes only in one direction. There's no reverse communication or feedback happening. That is simplex. Half duplex is where both side communication is possible, but not at the same time, like walkie-talkie. This is almost like our theories of communication. Okay, linear, transactional, linear, interactive, and transactional. But this is in physics terminology. Simplex is one directional, half duplex, both side communication is possible, but not at the same time, one by one. Full duplex is where both side communication is possible. That is a phone. Both sides can talk simultaneously. Here, both of us can, speak up at the same time. That is full duplex. Now, automatic communication means it refers to the automatic process of switching between sending and receiving data in half duplex and full duplex system. That is called automatic communication. In half duplex and full duplex, when the communication switches from this side to that side, sending and receiving, that is called automatic communication. Okay. Clear with this? Okay. Next, which of the following has been considered as a non-specialist media thinker? Manuel Castells, Marshall McLuhan, Wilbur Schramm, George Gerbner. Out of these four names, which names have you heard when it comes to theories of communication? If you recall the theories that we have talked about in last 3 days, which names have come up? Marshall McLuhan, medium is the message. Message is the medium. Schramm was there. Do you recall George Gerbner also? Manuel Castells is a sociologist, but whatever he has researched in sociology that has also contributed to media theory. So he is considered a non-specialist because his major work is not in media. His major work is as a sociologist. So he's considered as a non-specialist media thinker. Just give me a moment. See, Gabna gave the cultivation theory that media shapes worldview over time. So he has done major work in this field. So that's why I say that when I talk about this scientist, it's not because I want to bore you, but it's because if you have heard of these names, if you have kept them in mind, it becomes easy for you to solve such questions. Next, which of the following concepts are related to mass communication? Global village, medium is the message, the extension of man, pop culture prophet. You cannot give two options as the answer. You have to choose one. I'm reading who's giving what options. Okay, you can't give right two options. So the answer here is B, A, B, and C only. A description of all these terms. First, global village. So this concept was introduced again by Marshall McLuhan, just like medium is the message. It refers to how modern communication technologies, especially electronic media, have made the world more interconnected, functioning like a village. The global village concept was given by him. Medium is the message, which implies that the medium through which a message is delivered is as much significant or important as the content itself, because it influences how the message is perceived. So the medium through which the message is given is as important as the message. The extension of man. So McLuhan also proposed that media and technologies extend human senses and capabilities, altering how people experience the world. So I'm sitting here. My world is only this much. But when I look at the television, I can see things which I can probably not go there physically and see. So it's an extension of senses. I can see, I can visualize, I can listen to what's happening at a very far away distant place. Something of that sort. Marshall McLuhan was a key figure in media studies, often referred to as a media philosopher. He coined several influential terms, including global village and the medium is the message. So global village is a term that has been used a lot in recent years and that has been given by him. His works have shaped how we understand the impact of media on culture and society. The idea of global village is particularly relevant in the digital age, where the internet connects people across vast distances almost instantaneously. And pop culture prophet. the one concept which is not a part of our answers. It is not a standard term in mass communication theory, but it refers to individuals or media theorists who predict the trends in popular culture. That this is what is going to happen in the coming years or in the coming times. But it does not carry academic weight like the other terms. They have not done research. You have a lot of people teaching how to make reels on Instagram and how to get 5,000. 5,000 is a smaller word, right? Nowadays, so they talk about lakhs and millions of followers. So how to get more than million followers in 1 month. These are the kind of courses which are popping up on Instagram, on YouTube also. These are pop culture prophets. They'll tell you what's going to happen, what is going to work in the algorithms, what is not going to work. But they are not, their research or whatever they say does not carry academic weight. They have not done it in using proper research, aptitude research method. Okay. So these media theorists or individuals are called pop culture prophet. So that ends the topic of mass media. However, that does not end our session. Just give me a moment. There were a few questions from classroom communication, which I kept for today. So let's solve them. I think this question was not in. Peer group interaction in a classroom. Let's go into the teacher mode. Go back to the classrooms where you were students, and if you have experience in teaching, then that's even better. Peer group interaction in a classroom helps in concept understanding, realization of one's misunderstanding, rapport building, and questioning. Concept understanding and rapport building are two answers that we get. Okay. So when peers interact, it helps in better understanding of concepts. Peers feel more comfortable and open when interacting with a peer as they share a similar discourse, allowing for greater understanding. Also, they reinforce their own learning by instructing others. Next, in a classroom, a student, to be an effective listener, has to take note of the teacher appearance, the peer group, the academic content, and communication distractions. Okay, so see, when you have to listen in the classroom, the peer group does not matter because you are listening to the teacher. the academic content and the distractions which come up in the communication, these are the only two things that you need to take a note of. We are not talking about just understanding or classroom dynamics. Only listening is the question here. Okay. Next, the sequential order of elements in classroom communication is knowledge, interest, evaluation, awareness. 4 things are there. What comes first? What comes second? What comes third? What comes fourth? First, you become aware of the topic, then you develop interest in it. After you have interest, you have gotten the knowledge and you have evaluated about it. How can you develop awareness? Awareness is when you first get to know what the topic is. Then you develop an interest in it. Evaluation के बाद तो awareness की जरूरत ही नहीं है. It's not needed. You have already evaluated it. Awareness is very superficial. Okay. So your line of thinking was correct. It's just that one thing. Awareness has to come first. Everything else is correct. Next, which of the following are rhetorical techniques for structuring classroom communication? Relating the day's topic to students' interest, providing scattered information to the target audience, smooth transition from one idea to another, avoiding the use of artifacts, using media to improve the quality aspect of reception of messages, and opting for one-way communication. Okay, most of you are correct. The answer is C. See, here, if I, even before I look at the option, the moment I see avoiding the use of artifacts, that is not an option. Because using models, using things, using media to really helps students understand things better. So D cannot be an option. One-way communication, if you don't get feedback from students, how are you going to solve their doubts? So D and F are wrong. Now I just have 4 options, A, B, C, D. So I have, sorry, A, B, C, and E. So that leaves me with 2 options, A and C. Now, between using media versus providing scattered information to target audience, of course, using media is important. So that is why I would go for option C, even if I'm not very much sure about my answer. That is how your line of thinking has to be. Next, successful educational communication is dependent upon the skills of understanding the negative characteristics of audience, verbal communication and body language, estimating time for audience impact, analyzing the audience needs. See, when it comes to classroom communication or educational communication, what are your objectives of learning? What is the goal of, like, what should the learner understand or know by the end of the session? Knowing that is very important. So keeping that in mind, you need to, if we were just talking about successful communication, then probably all four of them could be an answer. But here, as we are talking specifically about classroom communication, then analyzing what the audience needs, that what the student needs, that is your curriculum. Going by the curriculum, and verbal communication and body language obviously are the two important things. Estimating time for audience impact and understanding negative characteristics of the audience are very, very less important as compared to the to B and D. So your answer is D. Next, dynamics of good classroom communication involves indifference, motivation, being organized, exclusivity, participation, and gendered views. If you just simply go by what are the good things in a communication and what could be barriers to communication, you can get your answer. Okay. So indifference is obviously not an option, because indifference means you do not care. And so far, based on whatever we have learned, or even based on the questions we have solved, empathy, advocacy is considered to be one of the very important aspects that a teacher should have when it comes to classroom communication. So indifference is gone. Motivation of students, again, very important. If you are not organized, you will not be able to complete the curriculum or achieve the objective of the lesson. So that is also important. Exclusivity means you make some students favorite, or you exclude some people. You do not care whether they understand or not, whether they learn or not. Now that is a problem. So D cannot be an option. Participation of all students is again important. Gendered views also refers to barriers based on gender. Okay. Next. When a teacher tells his student, when you learn this, you will be able to carry out your project, you have to consider only and only this statement, nothing before or after that. Okay, I'm giving you a hint to the answer. When you learn this, you will be able to carry out your project. What does this communication suggest? Is it continued interest? Is it ambiguous advice? It is potential threat? Or is it positive reinforcement? It could have been positive reinforcement if it was specified what is this. But as we do not know what is this, it falls into ambiguous advice because we don't have clarity. It does not contain any clear specification on what is to be learned or what the project is about. So we don't know how this can help. So this is unclear, confusing. But are you clear so far? Okay. Next. Micro expressions as part of classroom communication are negative, positive, manipulative, fleeting. Fleeting means they just pass away in a second, something that does not stay for long. Micro expressions. Micro. I'm emphasizing the word micro. They are fleeting. They don't stay for long. You really don't pay that much attention to micro expressions when it comes to classroom communication. Next, again, choosing from a lot of options. And nowadays we do have a lot of questions where such 6, 7 options are given and then you have to choose 3 or 4 out of it. Which of the following are essential for good classroom communication? Overemphasis on certain words, use of gobbledygook. Gobbledygook is basically blah, 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 something that you can't understand. Proper employment of redundancy. Redundancy is using words which are probably not needed or repetitive. Proper employment of redundancy, immediacy of feedback, non-verbal cues, and sidelining student criticism. What is essential for good classroom communication? Okay, so use of gobbledygook, things that people do not understand. That should not be done. So on that basis, my option A and B are gone, which is why I'm only getting options C and D in the chat box. But as compared to sidelining student criticism, proper employment of redundancy is very important. Redundancy is words that are not detailed or words that are repeated, but using that helps to clarify the concept or make the students understand things better. If you have given one example, you don't ideally need to give another example, but giving 2, 3 extra examples makes things more clear. So proper employment, emphasis on the word proper employment of redundancy helps to make concepts clear and helps the student understand things better. That is why C is chosen. Immediacy of feedback and non-verbal cues are anyways very important when it comes to classroom communication. Mini summaries at the end of each class is called verbal breakup, cliched conclusion, verbal signposting, staggered conclusion. Cliched conclusion. अरे ये तो करते रहते हैं. Cliche is something that has been used a lot of times that can be boring. How do I give an example of cliche? I have to think of it because I can think of terms in, like, for the Gujarati people here, there used to be a time where Joe Baka was suddenly in vogue, in fashion. But after a few months, everyone was like, every message, every smiley starts and ends with Joe Baka. And then people stopped liking that phrase or didn't laugh at that phrase. So it became a cliche. So cliched conclusion. That is the meaning of B. So our answer here is not B, but rather C, verbal signposting. Just as a sign post on the road orients you or shows you your relative position, how far you are from a place, verbal signpost orients the audience or students as regards the stage reached in the presentation. That is why mini summary at the end of a class, like when I say that today we talked about this and this, tomorrow we'll be talking about this topic that orients you as to where we are and how much far we have to go. That is why it is verbal signposting, and it is very important in classroom communication. If we come to the questions that we have already done yesterday, please just let me know, okay? In the digital era, there is a fear that classroom communication may result in overstimulation, quick adaptation, stimulation, passive adaptation. Read the question again. In the digital era, there is a fear that classroom communication may result in So now when we use the word fear, we need to think of whether it would be positive or not. Okay. Overstimulation. If I, instead of explaining all the concepts, let's say I put in 4-5 videos, and you would probably watch the video, then suddenly there's another video, there would be a lot of stimulation, a lot of things going on. Too much of that is also not okay. There has to be a limit. Otherwise, if there's a lot of sensation, a lot of noise and activity going on, then students can become unsettled. And your main purpose, the clarity of the concept or understanding which they need to achieve, might not happen. So that is why there is a fear that a lot of digital things could result in overstimulation. I think we talked about this yesterday. Probably not. Communication in the classroom takes place in which of the following levels? Opportunistic meaning, surfacial meaning, noise level meaning, non-coded meaning. Non-coded meaning. Okay. See, when we talk about a classroom, we are barely able to scratch the surface of the topic. We don't go into depth. We talked about so many theories today, but I just talked about the main point, summarized it in one line, sometimes even half a sentence. We just barely scratched the surface or the tip of the iceberg because the lesson is time bound. There is very little scope for reflecting, thinking, and analyzing. Probably after like more than half of the questions here, which we are discussing, if we could sit and discuss it as peers, as teachers together, all of them could be 1-2 hour discussions in themselves. Okay, but we don't have the time to do that. So that is why we are talking here only about the superficial meaning of it. This we did yesterday. Learner communication has. Here is also we did. This question was not done. I showed you the answer. Use of slang in formal teaching makes communication lively and interesting. Academic decency demands the avoidance of slang in classroom environment. So what's the connection of A and R? Or if one of them is true, one of them is false. So you cannot use slang in a classroom. Okay. That is why A is false. Both of them are opposites. Classroom communication is pre-decided by social and institutional demands. Okay. Positive educative actions should guide learners to acquire knowledge of social significance. Relation between the two statements, or whether they are true or false. The previous question answer was D, that A is false. Slang does not make class lively and interesting. But R is true, that because of academic decency, you should not use slang. Okay. So, social and institutional demand here is the syllabus or the curriculum that we are talking about. And also, there are pre-decided learning objectives. When we prepare students in school, it's not just we are teaching them the concepts, we are also teaching them how to behave in groups, how to behave in the society, what are moral values. A lot of other things are included as a part of it. So that is why R is true and is correct explanation of it. We'll take 2 more questions and end the session. Pedagogy and social interaction are 2 major result-oriented activities of teachers. Like communication has a limited role in both these activities. So the answer is C here, because communication is very, very important, whether we talk about pedagogy, and social interaction itself means communication among people in society. So R is false. And the last question for today, defining the objectives. Did we do this yesterday? Is not necessarily the first step in classroom communication. Clear definitions of objectives make students understand the topic well. A class would not be like students would not become aware or develop interest if they do not know what they are going to study in the class. So defining the objectives of the topic of discussion is the first step. Today we are going to learn this. Today we are going to talk about mass media, which is maximum number of questions when it comes to communication in today's newspaper, in UGC NET question paper, sorry, not newspaper. Too much of mass media in my head now. So when I start the session with this, you realize that this is an important topic and we are going to discuss it today. It is also the last topic. So that orients you. Array, D is already the answer I've shown you. Why are you giving me 1 and 2 as options? The answer is D, 4. Why am I getting all these options? Oh, something stuck in my messages. Okay. So I think we end the session here.